All right, we're back here, Locked On Packers, Locked On Saints. A crossover Thursday for Monday Night Football. Ross Jackson, Peter Bukowski with you. You know this. It's right there in the description in the podcast, right in your app or on YouTube, wherever you are. Ross, I mentioned turnovers before we went to break. This is a Packers defense that has specialized in turnovers, been among league leaders all season long. It is the one thing that in a game like this, when you're 2 touchdown favorites, that can turn things. If the Packers turn the ball over 2 or 3 times, that seems to be the clearest path if you're a Saints fan to go, if we can get Jordan Love to throw us a couple of these, that's how we try and stay in this game.
Yeah, the big issue for New Orleans is that while turnovers were the name of the game for them early on in the season, over the course of the past 4 or 5 games or so, they've not been generating the turnovers nearly at the same rate. There's a Demario Davis interception recently. He actually had one that he dropped as well. He came up in the post-game presser and looked right at us and said, after I'm done with here, I'm going to go home, jump on Amazon, and I'm going to get an express shipment of some hands because I need some hands. He said he dropped 2 interceptions that day. Came back a couple weeks later.
I do need to know where he's getting whatever he's getting from the fountain of youth, because he's still, like he's approaching 40 and still playing like an elite player. It's really remarkable what he's been able to do.
Yeah, insane. He did wherever he got the fountain of youth. It ain't from Amazon, because it ain't readily available like that. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. If PrizePicks had a more or less for Demario Davis at 40 years of NFL play, not 40 years old, but 40 years of NFL play, I might consider taking the more on that situation.
Yeah, but he's 35 and playing like he's 28. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. And he just had one of his better games, 14 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and then several pressures as well. So just came off one of his better games of the season. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be big in terms of trying to generate those turnovers, either by pass rushing and trying to force by that blitz, trying to force those mistakes like we were talking about from Jordan Love, if they can get them, or just prowling the middle of the field and trying to take away some options. So he's going to be a key player to watch in that very situation when it comes to the turnovers. Meanwhile, over the Saints offensive side, keeping away from the turnovers is going to be a little tricky, right? I mean, you've got a good defense and a good team on the other side that's going to apply pressure with the success of its offense, and a rookie quarterback more than likely that's got to be able to respond to that. That's a tricky situation to be in.
I have a maybe indelicate question.
Sure.
Do the Saints fans want to win this game?
I think so. I think for the most part, you'll find that Saints fans do want to see them win, because a lot of Saints fans are excited about Spencer Rattler, and they're more excited about Spencer Rattler than they are kind of excited about any quarterback you're going to get in this year's draft if you're not picking in the top 3. Like, there's really, this quarterback class is like dismal outside of maybe some of the top guys, and even some of the top guys the jury is very much out on. So we'll see which way it goes there. But I think that you'll probably hear like, oh, well, they should be vying for draft position, but wait and see what else happens around. The Saints went for the win last week, and if they would have won last week, it wouldn't have impacted their draft position at all. That could potentially happen again here come Monday with all the games complete on Sunday.
I loved the decision. Like I was saying, go for 2. You guys should be going for 2, especially in a season like this. And I think it speaks to the impact that Darren Rizzy has had. Because, like, do you think Dennis Allen makes that call?
Exactly. And no, I don't. And here's the other thing. You go back to the 4th downs that they attempted against the Los Angeles Rams at home. The fact that when the Rams, when they were driving and they were 1 potential touchdown away from tying that game, but they were going to go for 2 had they got that touchdown to go for the win. You look at the very first 4th down of Darren Rizzy's tenure up against the Atlanta Falcons. They marched out there, went for it, didn't get it. It's just part of what it is that Darren Rizzy does. He promised a couple of things. He promised passion, he promised fight, and he promised that the team would not be boring. And so far he's made good on that promise. That's for sure.
Yeah, it is a little bit for Packers fans who are maybe extremely online or just extremely obsessed with their team, which I assume is most of my audience. They remember that Darren Rizzy was a potential candidate for the Packers special teams job once upon a time. And according to the reporting and some of the things that I've heard, that was scuttled because they could not come to an agreement with the administration on the money. One of the few times I've ever heard of the Packers administration in a situation like, because they don't have an owner, remember?
Right.
Coming in and saying, we don't really do that. And I just wonder if like 2 years later, he had tried to do that, Matt LaFleur, after winning 13 games back-to-back seasons, that they just sort of say, yeah, here's a blank check. Like, whatever you want. They did that. They made Mike Pettin. Mike Pettin was one of the highest paid defensive coordinators. They made Rich Bisaccia the highest paid special teams coordinator in the NFL. So it's one of those sliding doors moments. Like there is definitely a timeline where Darren Rizzy is the special teams coordinator for the Packers. They win the Super Bowl in 2021 because they don't have such a dog water special teams group.
Unit.
and Darren Rizzy is now, not the interim coach for the New Orleans Saints. Is he someone that you think Saints fans are like, hey, like give this guy a legitimate shot to keep this job?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. It's kind of the one exception that I've seen for a while around the idea of like, hey, stick with the in-house guy, and people actually being kind of okay with it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people that say, no, blow it up, go ahead, completely redo everything, all that. But the fact of the matter is that there's only so much the Saints can blow up this offseason because of their very precarious salary cap situation, which we have to revisit every season. They're like $62 million over the salary cap. Small potatoes,
like that kind of thing.
Yeah, small potatoes, $62 million over the salary cap. That's nothing. But that's going to be a part of the truth for them going into 2025. They don't really have the ability to blow a lot of stuff up. So why not give the guy that's in-house, that has the rhythm with the guys, give your offensive coordinator a second year for a change, all these other things, and then be able to kind of walk into a second year of a similar setup here as you're ending in 2024. And then if it doesn't work in 2 or 3 years, after you've hit the reset button and after you have a better product to offer from a financial standpoint, then you can go and look for another head coach at that time. And I'll tell you what, too, when it comes to Darren Rizzy, I think you'll see the value of Darren Rizzy here as Packers fans going into this game, because a big, big reason why the Saints have won their games, 2 blocked field goals, being able to control the field position battle, all those other things. Those are going to be things that are probably going to be present in this game, to where you're going to see Darren Rizzy and what he does on the special team side be a factor in the game, just as valuable as the offensive or defensive factor.
Ross, that's not helpful to me.
I'm very sorry
with the fan base, because this is gonna freak them out, because we are laying out the case for how Packer fans have seen the Packers blow stupid games like this in the past, where you get a punt blocked, or you get a field goal blocked return for a touchdown, or
the Saints haven't had a punt block in a little while. That's a good point, Peter. I'm glad you brought that up.
I don't like this at all. So look, I think the Packers should win this game handily. I think they will. I think this is going to be one of those like 30-14 kind of games, 30-17 kind of games.
So you think they cover?
Like 30-17, there's not going to cover, and it's still going to be a pass game. So it's sort of like, I'm not going to bet on the Packers to cover 14.5. I'll tell you that. But just because I think that's ludicrous in the NFL for anyone to be 14.5 point favorites, though the Ravens, of course, they more than covered against the Giants last week. So we'll see. And the Packers had their problems with Tommy DeVito last year. We know how that looks. So I think this is a better Packers team. I said on social media the other day, Ross, that this is the most complete Packers team since 2010. If that's true, and by DVOA, that is just like, that's what the numbers say.
Right.
So if that's true, the Packers should win. They should win comfortably. And we'll get to podcast live after the game.
Yeah, it's gonna be a ton of fun. I think the Packers walk away with a win here too. I think the Saints win also, or Saints can win also, because I think that the Saints are in the world of moral victories now, because you're not going to the playoffs, right? You need to win out. You need the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to lose out. It's not going to happen at this point. And so what you want to see is, do the young guys like Spencer Rattler, running back Kendre Miller, left tackle Taliesin Fuanga, who's been awesome so far this season, and maybe some of the younger defensive guys, do you start to see some of the building blocks for your future that upon which you get to lay a foundation going into 2025, step up and shine a little bit? And I think if you see that, then you're in a winning situation in terms of what your future can look like. But I don't think that this is a game where the Saints are going to be walking away with a win in the win column, in the win-loss column in particular.
Yeah, and the Packers, I think they want to avoid a Pyrrhic victory, right? Where they guys get hurt, or someone who tries to play there's a lot of Packer fans going, do not play Jair Alexander in this game. It's okay. Like, they need him in the playoffs. And so I think you will see them be a little conservative with some of these guys. They would love nothing more than to play Malik Willis in the fourth quarter, So not that like that's going to happen necessarily, but I think that's certainly probably the goal. Like, is it really smart analysis to suggest that the team wouldn't love to blow out the other team? But but I think that's sort of what they're looking at, is let's just go win. That's all that matters, and then we'll figure out the rest.